In the land of ancient Israel, during a time of oppression and war, there lived a man unlike any other. His name was Samson, a judge, a warrior, and a chosen vessel of God. From birth he was set apart, dedicated as a Nazirite. His hair, long and untouched by blade, was the outward sign of a divine vow, and with it came strength beyond mortal imagining, strength that defied armies, tore lions limb from limb, and humbled the mightiest of men. The Philistines, ruthless enemies of his people, trembled at the sound of his name. The Israelites looked upon him with awe, as a deliverer, as a protector. He stood alone against the forces of darkness, a living legend carved from flesh and fire. But even legends have their weakness, and no man, no matter how mighty, is invulnerable to the sway of the heart. Into Samson's world stepped Delilah, a vision as captivating as the desert sunrise, her presence as soft and sudden as a breeze through the palms. The Philistines, desperate to destroy their enemy, offered her silver to betray him. Yet Delilah needed no sword or spear. Her power lay in her beauty, in her voice like honeyed wine, in eyes that glimmered with mystery. Samson, for all his strength, was drawn to her like a moth to flame. Their fates intertwined at that first glance. Around the fire they sat, laughter dancing in the embers, shadows playing on their faces. He spoke freely, unaware that his greatest trial had just begun. But Delilah was patient. With every attempt, her tone softened. Her touch lingered longer. Her eyes, now pleading, seemed to say, "Don't you love me?" Trust began to wear thin, like a rope fraying under strain. And outside in the dark, the Philistines waited, silent, watchful, growing impatient. One night, he spoke the words that sealed his fate. "If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I will become as weak as any other man." Delilah's eyes darkened, her smile wavered. As he slept, she gave the signal. A servant crept in with the blade, and the sacred locks fell silently to the earth. Stripped of power, Samson fought in vain. They bound him in chains as if leashing a fallen lion, and in brutal triumph, they gouged out his eyes. They cast him into prison, condemned to grind grain like an ox. But in that darkness, deeper than any he had known, a spark remained. Days turned to weeks, and weeks into months. No one noticed what quietly grew in the shadows, Samson's hair. Strand by strand, the covenant was being rewoven. But more than his hair, his heart was changing. Blind, he began to see his pride, his mistakes, his purpose. In whispered prayers, he reached for the God he had once taken for granted. The Philistines laughed, thinking him broken. But inside, a fire was rekindling. The warrior had not been extinguished. He had only been humbled. They brought him to the temple of Dagon, blind and mocked, paraded like a beast for their amusement. Thousands filled the marble hall, nobles and commoners alike, drunk on wine and victory. Samson stood between the two great pillars of the temple, his hands resting on the cold stone. And with tears in his blind eyes, he whispered, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please strengthen me just once more." His arms trembled, his back arched. And then, with a cry that pierced heaven and earth, he pushed. The stones groaned, the walls cracked. And with that final act of sacrifice, the temple came crashing down. When the dust settled, silence fell upon the ruins. Among the crushed stone and shattered idols, the body of Samson lay. But in the end, he rose above his weakness. The man who once boasted of strength died in surrender. The people of Israel wept as they carried him home, and for generations to come, they remembered not just his might, but his sacrifice. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak like any other man. But Samson was never like any other man.